Okay, so we're in our Rguroo. I have provided the data to you. If you go to Show My Groups and go to our class and click ISM Notes Data, import your Aldrin data set into your data toolbox. So where does ANOVA live? It lives in Analytics with all our other tests under ANOVA. We'll choose our data set, which is Aldrin. Our response is the Aldrin concentration, and it's by depth. And we'll leave our significance. So I want to look at the diagnostics. This is going to help us verify whether or not we meet conditions. And I also want to look at post hoc test. This is what happens after you conduct an ANOVA in which you do reject the null. So I'm choosing this because I know that I'm rejecting the null, but you can come back and select this after the fact. So if I look at diagnostics, I do want to see the box plot. I do want to see the QQ plot. So I'm going to leave those alone. I don't really need the residual versus fit or the Levine's test, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it there to discuss. In post hoc, I want the pairwise student T. I'm going to leave two keys because it's going to give us some confidence intervals that I want to discuss. So at the top, our model is Aldrin according to depth. We have 30 cases that were used. We have 10 each, no missing. And so here's the ANOVA table that I'm truly concerned with. So for depth, we had 2 degrees of freedom. 16.96 was our sum of squareds for our groups and 8.48. If you look at all these values, they're pretty much the same as the table that was providing the notes with the exception of we had 6.14 here, and that's just due to rounding. So our p-value is still 0.006. Okay, so the depth is significant at the 5% significance level, which just implies that at least one of the means is different for the levels. We just don't know which ones. So all we can say is that at least one is different. And so we look at our box plot to think about which one we think is different. We have this really nice box plot that we can actually do ourselves, but ANOVA will do it for us. So we have big variability in the bottom. We have, midway variability at mid depth and small variability in the surface. We have the medians for each, and we can see there's like a very slight difference at bottom and mid depth, but pretty significant, which we already know is significant because we tested it between bottom and surface. Something we didn't test was mid depth to surface. That might be something you want to verify yourself. We don't need to look at the residual versus fitted, but we do want to look at the QQ plot for residuals. And it does follow a pretty normal distribution looking at the QQ plot, so we're good there. Levine's test for equality would tell us that with a p-value of 0.14, it's not significant, so the variances are equal, so we can continue with our pairwise comparison. So I'm going to skip two keys for now. And at the bottom we have our pairwise comparison of Aldrin for levels of depth. So we tested bottom versus mid depth, and we failed to reject. We also did bottom versus surface, and we did reject. And then surface versus mid depth, notice that it's a large p-value as compared to our Bonferroni adjustment, even did the adjustment for us, we would fail to reject. So the only difference is bottom versus surface. So there's probably more Aldrin in the bottom than there is in the surface. Now, if we go back to Tukey creates a confidence interval pairwise. So this would be like a independent mean confidence interval, so difference of means. And so what we can do is look for if the confidence interval contains 0, just like we did before. So if we look at mid depth and bottom, this is 0 here, and the confidence interval, this is the lower, this is the upper, it does contain 0, so there's no evidence of a difference between the concentration at mid depth and bottom. Same thing for surface and mid-depth, it contains 0. And these confidence intervals for surface, mid-depth, and mid-depth bottom are pretty similar. But if we look at surface and bottom, it does not cross 0, and so there is evidence of a difference. It's negative values, right? Surface minus bottom, which would imply that the bottom has a higher concentration because all the values are negative. So 95% family-wise confidence level. All right, that wraps up using Rguroo for test of ANOVA and pairwise comparison.